The first theory which identifies or distinguishes Buddhism, whether it's Buddhism or not, is the cause and effect law. We see if it's true or not by looking at the cause and effect law. If you believe that the God causes all the happiness and all the misery, or if you think of any circumstance in that way, then the God becomes the object for your condition. He or the God becomes a person. The God becomes existence who controls your happiness or your misery. Then you become an object of the control of the God, and you do not become the person who takes care or who takes control of your own life. Then you do not become the object of living. So when we say we pray, then throughout our throughout our practice, and also through our repentance, we try to become a better human being. But just because you pray for something, and or just because or just due to prayer, if you think that something comes true, then it's a wrong understanding. If you think that there's no cause and effect law, or no cause and effect, then it becomes a serious condition. If you only believe in the cause and the effect, but if you do not practice it, then it is also improper. So you will have to take into consideration of the cause and effect and do all your acts. Secondly, in Buddhism, there's a theory that everything is changing in Buddhism. So if you say that there's something that is unconditional, then that is not Buddhism. Whether it's a God that created this world, or whether it's myself, my existence, or it's the existence of someone who is inside of you, if that thing doesn't change, if there's something that's absolute, then there is not Buddhism. Everything changes. There is nothing that's exceptional from this law, but everything changes. There is nothing in this world that does not change. So as per the Buddha's teaching, Dalai Lama has said, if if you want to identify whether it's correct or incorrect amongst the Buddha's teaching, then you have to know Anitta and Anatta. And in relation to this, when you study the law of change, and there is a law of relation that is also part of Brahmin and also Hinduism. And also in there, you know that there is a part that is unchangeable. And also Jainism is somewhat similar to teachings of Buddha. The Jainism, the person who invented Jainism was a person who was also born during the similar time to Buddha, and he talked about 13 points. Among those points, the last one, the Myeonggon, which is life, he said it doesn't change. He said life doesn't change. Everything changes, but life doesn't change. But when someone asked Buddha, Buddha said that it's wrong. In this life, even this thing called life is caused by relation, and also caused by the dependent origination. It is not just caused on its own. So everything is on. So everything like Anika and Anatta. So if you say, then how does this world exist? Everything exists because of a relation. There's nothing absolute. That's why everything changes. And that's why, because there's no essence inside, we call that void. If you call void in other words, it means it's empty property. So every property or every characteristics inside is also void. So whether we say it's a religion or not, or whether it's a Buddhism or not, you have to talk about the cause and effect law, and you have to talk about the absence of self. And if you're talking about dependent origination, then it is the Buddha's law. Although the format is different, but also even if you say it's within the Buddhism, and even if you're going to temple, if it's for myself, and if it's also that there is me which doesn't change, and if it's also the um, the the person who is cause everything. For example, like Mao Zedong in China, because he does not believe in cause and effect law, he kills about 3 billion people. If he does not believe in, if he believes in cause and effect law, then how can he kill about 3 billion people? Even this thing called consciousness is also a part of characteristics. They did not see our personality or consciousness as something else. They do not believe in cause and effect law. So if they believe in cause and effect law, they wouldn't even kill their parents or relatives. So those foreign countries, since they do not believe in a proper ideology, this can also cause them a serious problem. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because even if when you're believing Buddhism, before you reach to a certain condition, and before that you need to know what is the cause. It is important to know what is the characteristics which led to this condition, and also what is the cause. Let's see inside. Like this, the Buddha's wisdom cannot be caused without a reason. Here, the Buddha's wisdom or Buddha's knowledge is it's the attainment of enlightenment. So in Diamond Sutra, they call it all knowledge. You've also heard this kind of prayer saying that you're aspiring for the all knowledge or Buddha's knowledge. 일체종지 Buddha's wisdom means you are following Buddha's rule. If you look at Buddha's text, which he has been teaching for 45 years, if you look at his text, then is there any part that says you are not aware of this content? If you can find Buddha's answer where he said he doesn't know, then I will give you prize for it. I will give you a big prize. Why? Because Buddha knew about everything. Because of present, Buddha knew the past. And also due to his own condition at the time, he also spoke about the cause for his reason, or the cause for his practice, or cause of him at the time. So with the present as the basis, Buddha also knew the future. It's like this. You plant orange tree, so you know that after a few years there'll be orange born from the tree. If you say there's a fortune telling, or it's not fortune telling, or it's not telling of the future, but it's because you know what you have done in the past. You know what's going to happen in the future. So you know that because you have planted beans, you know that beans will grow out of the plant. Also, since you wanted to, uh, also since because you prayed that you are trying to grow feel sense of bodhisattva inside of you in front of the Dipankara statue. That's why Dipankara said there will be born of Sakyamuni in future. So that's the birth of Buddha. So like time frame, in the time frame, you know the past, present, and the future. So once an actor said, for 20 years I tried to make rice, but um, if I try to find the spoon to if I try to find the spoon, then I can't find it. Then my daughter always tells me the spoon is always in the cupboard. So it seems like if you try to look for your mobile phone nowadays, then you find it in the fridge a lot of times. But even in the space wise, even the space wise, um, but then knew all four directions of the world. He knew what is going to happen throughout the world. The saying that he knows the present, future, and the past, and also the whole world. This means that he knows everything. So doesn't becoming Buddha doesn't mean you know something of up to certain knowledge, but knowing everything, having possessing everything. Here, everything refers to the compassion for the good of all sentient beings. There will be more detail in later. Like this, no all knowledge or no Buddha's wisdom can be caused without reason. So it also means you will not become Buddha without any reason. So even like a thief, becoming a thief without a reason, you do not become a thief. You did not become thief because someone great asked you to become a thief. So without planting beans, there can be no beans grown. But at times there is something like this. Because of your poor observation power, you do not know what is the cause. But not knowing the reason is different from not having a reason. So also like becoming Buddha. You do not become Buddha just with a thought or aspiration to become a Buddha. You cannot become a Buddha without a reason or without a cause. Since the cause will be talked about later, when we say we believe in Buddhism, it means we believe in the root or the seed that we will become Buddha, and we believe in the condition that we will become Buddha, and we also believe in the consequence of becoming a Buddha. So, in olden times, someone said with the statue, when they talk about they used to say those Buddhas made up of soil, they could not cross they could not cross water, and Buddhas made of steel, they cannot cross the furnace. But this is all just a shape. It's not an actual Buddha. Becoming a Buddha is can be achieved by a person, and also that is not by any person. Anyone can do it, but there should be a cause and there should be an effect, and also from them there is a consequence. Although I'm a little ugly, just look at me. Buddha is more uglier than me. If without any reason there can be one wisdom, then everything has to rely on that reason. So becoming a Buddha, you need to have Buddha's wisdom, but without the wisdom, that means everything has to be a Buddha's wisdom, like whether you're stealing something or just your mere existence is your living, is your Buddha's wisdom. Then you say, in Korea, you forget about or you neglect about the cause and you just talk about the consequence and say everything is Buddha. So when you say everything is Buddha, does it mean that even the thief was a Buddha? It's not. So if everything is Buddha's wisdom, then okay, let's talk about it this way. If you say everything is a right bean, then there is no reason to bring red bean because everything is a right bean. So if everything is a red bean, then you do not have to find another species which is a red bean. But we do different cultivations. We plant different beans. We plant different systems. We also plant different sweet potato. But if everything is going to become red beans, whatever we plant, then we do not have. There's no need to identify a red bean as a red bean, if that's the theory, right? But from the book, if you just forget about all the context and say everything was Buddha from the origin, then if you cut out the tail and the head and just take the sentence, then you don't know whether it's a fish or whether it's a beef. So when you talk about these notions and also there was someone who talked about this before, so I asked him if everyone was Buddha, then why do we have so many thieves and criminals in our prison? I asked him why are they in the prison, and he couldn't answer. So you should know that it is not so. But if there's something that arises from anything without any cause, then you don't have to have any restrictions. If it can be caused without dependence, then there can be nothing that can have a control over it. If I'm someone who is not dependent on anything, there are sometimes people like that. But when they leave, who are they relying on? You rely on your husband. When your husband gives you pocket money, you're happy, right? No? Then I'll call him. You rely on everything, your husband, your kids, the shops next door. You rely on water, you rely on oxygen, you rely on land. If you're living independently, if you are living without any condition, then even if you are on the moon, you should not die because you're not relying on oxygen. Even if you're on the Sahara Desert and even if you don't have even a single drop of water, you should survive. If you say you can survive independently. But if you say, like Robinson Crusoe could survive in an island, it's just that he did not have relation with other humans, but he had sun, he had moon, he had oxygen, water, he had trees to rely on. So there's no existence in our life that is independent. Those are very foolish people think they are independent. They think they don't rely on anyone else, but they are not. It's just that you do not ask them for any favor, but you do have a relation with them. If you acknowledge yourself as independent human, then your husband cannot have any restrictions on you, and even that cannot have any restrictions on you. You have got nothing to do with that because you are independent. You rely on everything. You rely on time. You rely on different conditions. Buddha got his enlightenment dependent on commons. He attained enlightenment because of sufferings of all other human beings. If he did not observe other people's suffering, then he would not have attained enlightenment. Look at me. Buddha will not look at you directly. Look at me. If that's the case, then nothing can become all knowledge. If you say that's the case, if you say that being is independent, then there is no need to have any objects. There is no need to know about all knowledge. There is no need to become a Buddha. There is no need to become a Buddha. That's why the ascetic practice to become Bodhisattva, since they arise from observing all sufferings of all other humans, we try to Avalokitesvara, and because we are looking at their sufferings and we want to be free from it, we look for compassion. And also we pray, we aspire for them because we are with the hopes to be free from them. That should be the basis for your prayer. That only it will be done. So all the objects arising depending on the situation is dependent on the situation. So in the dependent origination, there is a theory that Buddha talked about, just like Einstein's is equal to MC square theory. So when he was going down the river, he saw um he saw this
갈대꽃을 다 훑어버리고 우리 그 수수 빗자루 만들듯이 이렇게 빗자루 만드는데
he saw the reed field, and using the reeds they were making houses. And also when he was walking by, he saw the bunch of reeds being just plucked out there. And Buddha said, if you just make a bunch of reeds to stay, then it will not just stand up. But we have put two bunches together, just like that, looking dependent. They could stand dependent on each other, because there's this bunch of reeds. Even the other reeds were standing. If this reed falls down, then the other falls down too.
인간이 살아가는 것도
It's the same as our human life,
부부라고
because we say it's a married couple.
결혼을 해야 그게 가능한
It's only
일이다.
possible if you get married.
그러니까 그걸 갖다 비유고 차요. 이것이 있으므로 저것이 있고.
Because of its existence, the other exists, and because the other disappear, this disappear.
아주 아인슈타인의 에너지
This theory
공식과 같이
is very accurate, just like Einstein's theory.
그냥 이 세상을 우리 몸뚱아리를 놓고 바라보더라도
When we also look at it like our human body, because everything is dependent on each other, we exist. The bones are existing because of their dependence on the skin.
여러분이 만약에 관절염이
For example, if you have inflammation on your bones, and if you have a disc, that means maybe the muscle in that part is weakened.
많이 달아졌다는 뜻이기도 하지만 사실 그 부분의 근육을 갖다가 거의 강화시키지 않아서
This also means that the muscle at the part has weakened, but also it could also mean that your disc has worn out.
서로 의존하고 있는
So we can also know that the bones and the muscles are dependent on each other.
다 몸 속에 손가락은 손을 의지하고
Our fingers are dependent on our hands,
손톱은
and our
손가락을
nails are dependent on the fingers.
피부는 안에 살을
The skin is dependent on our flesh inside. Our vessels are dependent on the skin.
다 의지해서
Everything is existing dependent on each other. No part in our body is existing independently. Even our consciousness is also impossible to exist without any dependence. Everything is dependent on each other.
어느 한 부분이라고 얘기하더라도
Even when you talk about all part of our body,
전체를 다 얘기하지 않고 어느 한 부분을
if you're talking about all part of our body,
분석을
if you
해보면
analyze it,
안에 작은 것들로 또
it's also dependent on small things inside.
그렇게 돼 있어요. 그러니까
So
의지하고 의지해서 상의 상도
you are dependent, and
상상력이란 이 뭐냐면
recorded
서로 의지하면서
recorded dependent on others, and because of the dependence you exist. This
그런 것은
just because we depend on each other we exist. There is no existence without any dependence.
그래서 그러므로 때에 따라 부분적으로
Thus,
생기는
at
모든
times,
사물은
all the
원리에 의존하고 있을 뿐
all the objects arising, they are only dependent on the cause.
이걸 볼 때 인 플러스 연과 그렇게 얘기할 때 요게 이제 우리 인이 있잖아요, 그죠? 예? 인 요것이 요게 다시 이게 이 앞에는 어떻게 되냐면 요게 과이고
When you say
과이고
the cause is taught by
그다음에 또 인이 있었다.
our deeds. So when we say our cause or our virtue, it's not just existing on its own, but it's only existing.
그래서 이는 계속 인이
The virtue is not virtue on its own.
내가 예를 든다 그러면 콩이 하나 이렇게
So if I have a bean, and if I plant a bean, the bean is a cause.
뿌리가 나고 줄기가 났을 때는 콩은
But when the stems grow and when the roots, when the flowers are born, then the bean is gone. So although the condition is provided, the virtue has been changed into the stem, and due to that there's flower and there'll be another fruit. So if you look at it, then we say the plant bean is a virtue, but the sun, the water, everything provides it the stance for its change. So
일체지도 역시 때에 따라 부분적으로 생기는 것이며
even Buddha's wisdom is caused by depending on the situation and the time.
또 이런 것도
So even attaining all knowledge,
여기 이제 보시면
if you look here,
부분적으로 생기는 것이며 언제든지 그런 것은 아닙니다.
is caused
요게
and it's not always it's not permanent.
그 깨달음의 원인을 이렇게 만들고
So we make the reason for the enlightenment, and when we make the condition for the enlightenment, it is cause. But enlightenment does not exist on its own. If we say it's existing from its first time, then there's no need for us to do our practice.
그런데 중국에 와서 이제 얘기하는 사람들은 자꾸 이제 그게 너무 이제 오버돼가지고.
But when you listen to the theories which has been passed down from China and others, then they just say that everything has been prevalent from its first time. This doesn't mean that everything was prevalent from the first time, but this is a phenomenon that's caused when every condition is given.
일반적으로 오는 현상은 아니다.
And it's not a common condition. If you don't provide it accurate conditions, this will not be done.
그건 우리가 수행할
If this is a common condition, then there's no need for us to do practice.
수행할 필요가 없는 것이다. 그래서 이제 부분적으로 생기는 게 언제든지 그런 것은 아닙니다.
So it's caused conditionally, but it's caused conditionally. It doesn't mean it's caused all the time, and it's not caused everywhere.
깨달음이 어느 곳에서나 딱 온다. 어느 특정한 장소가 있다. 그건 아니에요.
This doesn't mean that it's also caused at a specific place. So this doesn't mean you gain enlightenment at Bodh Gaya, where Sakyamuni got his enlightenment. But this just means that there was a saint who practices asceticism there. So it provides us a better reason or a better cause for us to study. But just because of that, you do not gain your own enlightenment. Just being your existence there does not give you enlightenment.
아이고 정멸보고에 가서 기도를 하면 기도가 잘 된다요. 그가 뭐 한 가지 소원은 들어준다요. 그 내가 묻는다고.
Sometimes people come and tell me if you go and pray in that area, they give you one. They listen to one of your wish. So I asked them, who is that thing, or who is that being who makes your dream come true?
그 자체가 그 장소 자체가 깨달음이라 한다.
If you say that place itself is the enlightenment, then these people who believe in mysticism, they say, if you have a monastery in this area, depending on the feng shui, you can make all the countries come true. And if you listen to all of them saying, then or if you listen to those people who are fortune tellers, then sometimes they say because they saw the future in the wrong way, they are not able to say correct. So you cannot gain enlightenment in everywhere or anywhere. So when you say you pray, we are not talking about places. Praying It's
어떤
also
조건, 그러니까 기도
dependent
문제는
on
쭉
the
나가보면
cause and
그
also
조건 가운데 조금 나은 조건이 하나.
so for example, if you choose a place to pray, then it just means that you're maybe choosing a better place for you to pray. So no matter how good cause that you have or how good condition that you have, if there is no proper cause, then it's almost same as you have a good field, but you haven't planted any seeds on it. Then it becomes a field that's filled with weeds.
암 걸린 사람한테 산삼 먹이지 마라.
So it's almost same like I tell them,
암 걸린 사람한테 산삼
I
먹이면요 99% 산삼이 다 빨아.
I I tell them that those people who has cancer, if you give them ginseng, then the cancer, the molecules, the elements of cancer will grow bigger because they eat all the nutrients. The cancer only dies if you say that you die, I die.
가지고 하여튼 좀 세포도 빌빌빌하고
So if my atoms or if my body
암 걸리면요
is also sick, if an old person gets cancer, because it's old, then even the cancer grows slowly. But if a youngster get cancer, then just like our body, the cancer also spreads quickly.
세포만 죽이는 게 아니라 그러면 일반 세포도 죽이니까
This medicine that we use for the cancer, they also kill our regular cells. That's why all our hairs fall.
따라서 그 원인과 조건에
So
분명합니다.
it's evident that they are dependent on the condition and also the
원인이라는 것이 뭐
cause.
갑자기 어느 날 이렇게 되는 것이 아니라 분명하게 깨달음의 원인을 우리가 일으켜야 되고
So you need to arise the concrete cause for the enlightenment and also the condition for it. Also the cause and the condition. Then only you'll get enlightenment.
깨달음이라는 것 자체를 특수한 방식으로 얻을 수 있다는 것은 어불성설입니다.
But it's wrong to say you can get enlightenment through special means.
갑자기 무엇이 된다는 것은 없다.
In none of Buddha's texts there's anything written or said about the ways to gain enlightenment through special means.
그 다음에 그 조건을 만들어 나가는 것이 구체적으로 어떤 것이냐. 그건 뭘 근거로 해서 하는 얘기냐면 우리 중생심이 우리가
All these things they are based on the saying that our sense of beings is caused due to following reasons. So how do you solve or what do you do in order to solve all these feelings?
내용 따라서 약이 처방됩니다.
The medicines are prescribed depending on the feelings.
그러니까 한 가지만 가지고서는
So if you say
그 안마
it's not, it can be cured with just one medicine.
감기약만 해도 여러분
Even the medicine for common cold,
이게 한 알만 땡 먹으시오. 그렇게
even
안
the
하고
cold medicine, they do not ask you to eat only one medicine, but they give you different types of medications for the cold. This is for the runny nose, for the cough.
가래가
This is for the mucus.
사라지는 약입니다. 예? 그죠? 요거 열을 좀
This is
내리는
for the
약입니다.
fever.
요거는 먹으면 속이 썩을까 싶어서
This is for your stomach.
오일을 좀 넣었습니다. 그런 약이 여러 개가 처방되듯이
A lot of these medicines are prescribed together. Just like that, our feelings of
보니까 중생심이 요게 워낙 병이 좀 복잡해.
when Buddha looked at our people's life and also our heart, he knew the complexity of it. So that's why Buddha has given us different medicines as prescription. So the sense of parsimony and the greed, the best way to remove that agony is through donation, through giving out. So when you give,
그 욕심 내 마음속의 욕심을 그 없애면서 줄라 그러면 어떻게 주면 되느냐? 첫 번째 제일 좋은 것 줘.
When you give, the best way is give them the best thing that you have.
제일 아까운 것부터 먼저
Give
줘.
them what you like the
제일 아까운
most.
게 뭐죠, 박사님?
What is the thing that you like the most?
뭐가 아까워? 장롱 속에 탁 넣어놨던 거.
The thing that you have in your closet.
수월시 모사는 제일 아까운 게 뭐예요? 응? 별로 없어?
Not a lot.
결혼 반지 팔아먹었나?
Did you sell your wedding ring?
예? 며느리
You gave it to your daughter-in-law.
며느리 족보였으니까
If you gave it to her, then it's fine.
인색감을 없애는 방법 가운데는 하여튼 베푸는 방법이 제일 좋대요.
They say the best way to get rid of parsimony is to give, and give often, and give a lot.
필요한 사람.
Give it to those who needs it.
예? 또그 여기 무주상 보시는데 상이라는 것이 상이라는 여러 가지야. 제가 잘생긴 것이니까 주고.
And also you can give. You can also give for the different reasons.
대상 보고 구분하는 거.
So sometimes it's also you differentiate depending on their appearance. You give to them because they're handsome. You do not give to them because they're ugly. But you should give without any differentiation. And if you keep giving due to this small object, if you think,
얼마든지 줄 수 있다라는 것이 전제가 되지.
if you have then the condition will arise in you that because if the person is happy because of this small thing, then you keep giving to them, and so you also gain happiness in between. And Buddha said there's no better way,
부도가 나거나 뭐 나가버리고.
and also Buddha says in that way there's no better way to do it.
남을 해치는 것을 갖다가 인과가 오니까 남을 해치는 것을 막으려 그러면 제일 좋은 방법이 계율을 줘.
And the best way to protect yourself because of cause and effect is to follow the Buddhist regulations.
해치는 방법들을 갖다 제동 걸어놓은 거.
They talk about different things that you should obey, not killing, not,
사는 것은 인욕행 방법.
and also you cannot just live without being angry.
전화 왔다.
If your opponent is angry,
그를 스승으로 삼았어.
take that person as your teacher.
일을 내고 나를 해하는 자를 갖다 스승으로 삼아서 내가 공부를 하겠다라고.
And if you study, if you think of it in that way,
인욕 오히려 수행이
then it becomes your object of practice for you.
힘들을 갖다 전부 다 하나하나 해체시키는 방법을 갖다가.
So Buddha has talked about all these ways to remove this kind of agonies from your life because they become the seed of your agony.
이제 달라이라마 이제 해석입니다.
So this is Dalai Lama's
이들에서는 언제나
description.
언제나 그렇지
So in
않고
this line, a thing that exists all the time and does not exist all the time, they are talking about two different conditions.
원체에서 언제나 그런 것이며 그런 것이 아니며 때에 따라 가끔씩 존재하는 것은 무엇을 암시합니까? 이러한 질문 아주 자연스럽게 생기는 것입니다. 여기서 암시하는 것은 원인들에 의존하는
When you say in the second line, if you say something is not existing all the time, but if it's existing depending in the situation, what does it suggest? This kind of question is naturally aroused. Here, they suggest that they're suggesting that it's an instant that's dependent on the cause. In reality, if we say there's a special property for arising for the existence of a particular object, but it doesn't mean that they are always the same. And also it doesn't mean that they are caused independently, but it's caused dependent on some other properties. And also there are different types of this cause and effect, and also this phenomenon. If you talk about these cherry blossom trees, when they arouse, when they come to you, you see them in spring, right? And in the spring, when they come, it's evident that the temperature and the humidity for the cherry blossom trees to grow is correct. So when the condition is given, then the cherry blossom flowers they blossom. But in the condition is gone, then they disappear. So all the conditions in this world, they come to you for an instant and they disappear eventually. It's the same for us in everyday life. While our life, we say that you suffer a lot while living, but if you look at it in the time of universe, then it's gone in an instant. So they are not always existing, but they come because of cause and their condition. But they disappear when the condition and the cause is given, gone. It's an universal thing. Is there something that is not so? That we call it anika. Even our heart and even our consciousness. Our thoughts come and our thoughts go. It keeps repeating. So when you're looking at flower, then you think that it's a flower. But if you're not looking at flower, and if you say, you do not look at other things and say it's a flower. So even this thing called thought, dependent on the body part that you're seeing and also your thoughts, the thoughts come and go. So that's why when you're talking, you say something like, the person was eating in the restaurant yesterday and he has stomach problem, and then the thought of stomach problem comes to your head. And also when you say that, oh, I ate in the restaurant and I ate a lot because it was so delicious, then you think about eating a lot. And when the other person says, he saw some flowers in some places, then you also think about the flower. So thoughts are those, they come and they go as per the condition. And also this thing called anger, they come and they go depending on the situations. If this thing called anger does not go away, then you feel like you're on fire. You are the one who's going to be inflamed. So this thing, just like we said previously, they do not exist independently, but everything exists dependent on something else. The reason why we talk about these given conditions is because even your aspiration to become Buddha, this is not normal value, but unless until you give them, or unless until you provide the given cause or the given condition, you do not become Buddha. It's not something that is existing from the beginning. If it's been existing from beginning, then there's no reason for us to teach here. Okay, so when you talk about causes, there are actual cause, there is direct cause, there is indirect cause, and there is also same kind and also secondary cause. And even conditions, we have objective conditions and the conditions caused by a cause, and also immediate conditions, like these all different conditions. Therefore, all the causes or phenomena are caused by cause and also conditions. They are not staying in one particular place in a same way. So when you're talking about a cause, okay, when we say we plant beans, that becomes the cause, and if the bean is produced from the bean, then this is the actual reason. This is the actual cause. When you say the other person has cancer, but when we have to think what was the what was the direct cause for the cancer, and also indirect cause.
이게 한 가지 원인으로 걸린 게 아니고
It's not because of one direct reason, but if it's because of complex other different diverse reasons for the cause that's indirect. And also there are some causes which are of the same kind. And also there are some secondary causes.
부분적 원인도 있단 말이야. 이런 원인들을
All these causes
대승국에서
in Mahayana we talk in detail. And also conditions. There are so many different conditions. Objective conditions, conditions caused by cause. Objective conditions are those common conditions, like a human is born and gets old. That is objective condition.
살면서 이게 대한민국의 공기를 갖다 마시고 있다 그래서 보편 조건들이
You're born in Korea, you breathe Korean air. That is common condition. We breathe the pollution from the industrial area in Yasu. That is also a common condition.
그러니까 보편 조건과 원인 조건의 직전 조건 그러니까 요 조건에 의해서 됐는데 그 앞에
And also immediate condition. There are some conditions which are added by the conditions that happens.
그러니까 그 원인과 조건
So all the conditions and causes, no matter how much you try to reveal them, there are some conditions or causes that cannot be revealed. The reason why they can't be revealed is quite funny.
그게 현재라는 게
There is something called present.
현재 콩에 꽃이
There is a flower in the bean.
꽃이 있고 콩꽃을 보고 콩
Looking at the flower of the bean, you can know that there was a bean. You know that you can assume that there was a cause. But is there a bean in here?
현재는 지금 콩이 있으니까
Is there a bean in present?
이게 변화해서 이렇게 된 거거든요.
Because it changed to this.
지금 그 콩이 지금 달려 있습니까? 안
Is there a bean in here? There's no bean, right? There's only a flower.
콩꽃이단 말이야. 그러면 우리가 알기가 어려운 것이
But here the difficult thing that we need to know is if you look at it now,
콩이 있었다는 거.
looking at the bean, we know that there was a flower, but
콩이 달릴 것이라는 것도 알.
and also we know that there will be a bean from it. But
지금 우리가 여러분이 만약에 내가 아주 죽을 병에 걸렸다.
if you say you have a deadly disease, then you might think, oh, you haven't done anything evil
세상에서는 지금 악한 짓을
in this life.
요 앞에 온 것이니까 요거는
But
지금 변해서 내가 또
But maybe it is something that you have done in your previous life, and that thing changed and became you. So,
내가 돼 있기 때문에 여기에 이거는 변화해버리기
because
때문에
this thing has already changed, you cannot see it.
요 속에 암이 걸린 것을 가지고 결과를 가지고
You can only figure it out from the consequences of your life in this life, the fact that you have a cancer.
그렇죠? 그럼 이제 부처님은 이걸 다 아시죠?
But Buddha knows all this. Why?
그게 아마 내가 저번에 저 우주학을 갖다가 그 강의하는 사람 강의
Once I listened to someone speaking about the universal laws. He had so many boards and he was writing on so many different formulas, and I was so confused.
그래가지고 네 칠판을 써가지고 답이 나오고
And he came to a conclusion after using four whiteboards, through math formula,
마이너스 뭐 제곱
so many squares, plus, minuses. He came to a conclusion.
그거는 그 과학자는 잘 아는 거잖아요, 그죠?
The scientist knows, but we don't know.
부처님도 요 원인을 사라지고 지금 현재 결과로 나와 있지만도
Even Buddha, the cause has disappeared, and it's only given as a present condition. But just like us, just like the scientists, being able to come out with a proper solution, Buddha knew it.
절대 신이 있어가 만들었다 그러면 왜 만들었는지 잘 모르.
But you cannot just say things like because there is an absolute God. He just made it.
반복된 것이기 때문에 알 수가 있다.
But you are able to know, it because it's all a repetition of the cause and the effect, which are
온 것을 가지고
cause and
알
effect.
수가 있다.
Because it's a repetition, you are able to know.
그리고 이제 그들은 언제나 한 곳에 그대로 있는
And also, they are not just staying in one place always.
한 시간에 여러분이 절대 가만히 머물러 있지 못합니다.
So you cannot stay either in one place at one time. Just because you stay in your same house, you feel like you're staying in the same house.
집에서 머물러서 삽니까?
Are you living in your house or what?
대답을
Why can't you answer me?
어째요?
How is it?
네? 근데 그렇게도 왔다 갔다 오고 한 집에 머문다는 것은 두 가지 개념이
Living in one house means has two different concepts. Staying there as for the time, or staying there in the space. Just because you stayed there for 8 hours, does it mean you're there? You cannot answer me because you feel scared of answering whatever question I ask. So you just look at me.
그러니까 머무른 것 같지만은도 시간이
You feel like you stayed there for only 8 hours, but it's more than 8 hours.
그죠? 지금 내가 가서 머물러서 이렇게 누르고 앉아 있었어. 근데 시간이 8시간에 시간이 갔어.
You feel like you only rested for a while, but 8 hours has already passed. So, and also you cannot just stay there in the time. And also, if you say you stay in the space, even the space is rotting each time. Because we're so mundane, we are not able to know how the change. And after 15 years, you feel that the house is rotten, and so you want to change. You want to do redecoration. So just because you stay in a house doesn't mean everything stays the same. The papers, the wallpapers, they rot. The germs they eat. So the time and the space cannot stay in one place at the same time. So as you, or so do I.
세포의 뼈 장등 해수욕장입니다. 그래서 내가 인터넷 보는 사람 모르기 때문에.
So
이 육도 윤회를 하는 과정 속에서
through this our practice,
초도 머물 수 있는 곳도
there's no place where you can stay even for a second, and there's no place where you can rest.
이해되죠?
You understand?
보안법에 이름은 안 걸릴 거야. 동무들 요해되시죠? 그러니까 우리들 스스로뿐만 아니라 이 공간과 지구도 한 자리 가만 안 있어. 옛날에
So we don't stay. And also even the earth doesn't stay in the same place. In olden times, in Catholic, they believe that the earth stays the same, and so so like people like Columbus, when they wanted to go out to the ocean for adventure, they advised Columbus not to go, that there is a cliff. But when the scientists did more experiments, they came to know that the earth is round.
멀어서 안 보이는 게 또 있지만은도 요게 둥글어가지고 살살 이렇게 돌아가기 때문에 안 보여.
If you go around, if you're on the cruise, then you are not able to see the other part because the earth is round.
저런 나쁜 놈 지구가 네모가 나는데 둥글다 그래야 교황이 잡아다.
So when some scientists claim the earth is round, the Pope asked them to kill him because he's a corporate who does not believe. So even now, even Earth is revolving. Earth is revolving, revolving through the sun. But sun stays. But that doesn't mean sun doesn't change. Sun has nuclear. Sun has a nuclear reaction in it, and it's always going through different changes. So each time there is a flame from the sun, that it travels through thousands of miles. So you can sometimes also see it from the Earth. So the radioactivity from the sun. Sometimes you can see that people wearing the space clothes. That's in order to protect themselves from the radioactivity. If you go out in the bare body, then it won't even take many seconds before you die. So even the sun changes, even this universe change. The picture that NASA has shown a few days before, this galaxy and this Milky Way and the other Milky Way, they revolve, and once they revolve, and once they met, and in the process, many stars, many stars, many stars hit against each other and they bursted, and that was also taken as a picture.
그렇게 했던데 그럼 아주 동화적인 얘기고 그게 별이 수조개가 있고 그렇단 말이야. 막 지구하고 똑같은 것들 붙어.
There are so many stars in the Milky Way, and some say there's also a planet that's similar to Earth. But people over there, they would not know that I am sitting here teaching with the sloth now. So there's no existence that can stay in the same space and same time. So although you feel like you are stagnant in the same place or same time, but it is not so. You are moving from this place to another and another level. So you're not. And in that way, you achieve voidness and you achieve enlightenment. If there is something that does not change, if there is something that is always stagnant, and if there is something that is not conditioned by time, then that's a big problem. But not even for a moment, whether it's you or me or if there's anything in this universe, we cannot stay in one place. Everything changes. You accept it, right? You all changed. Go home and take out pictures from your high school and look at it and think whether it was you. If you say again, all the phenomena that has been conditioned, we can divide them into 3 different categories. If it's not form or consciousness. If we look at it as our human body, then the thing that's produced from the conditions, we call it human. The human formed by conditions. Then we have our consciousness, our thoughts, these 2 things. Even phenomenon can be divided into different categories, like shapes, colors, and you can see them and you can touch them. The forms, you can know how the person looks like, and consciousness does not have a shape, does not have a color, and cannot be defined by any in any physical words,
색깔이 있는 것도 아니잖아요.
because consciousness does not have a color,
의식은 색깔이 있는 거예요. 또 모양이
and also it does not have a shape.
그리고 이제 또 그렇게 그 모양과 색깔이 없기 때문에 바깥으로 이렇게 어떤 그 차단이나 이렇게 할 수가 없어요.
So since the consciousness does not have a shape or color, so we cannot go out and look for it.
사실상은 그 벽하고 상관없이 생각할 수 있어. 그러나 나는
If I'm sitting here and if I'm thinking about outside, sitting here, then I can just think about it. I can just think about it without being there, the outside. But my body, if I try to go just like my consciousness, I cannot because there's a wall blocking me. But our consciousness can.
그러나 의식은
But consciousness can be felt just by feelings or even senses.
생각이 일어나거나 그죠. 또 내가 뭘 감각적으로 느끼거나 그러면 의식이 있다 그러죠.
If you can feel it or if you can sense it, we say that person has a consciousness. In hospital, if you say because in hospital, if a person is unconscious, you cannot feel it because our body part, the brain, which is in charge of the consciousness, is not working. On the other hand, this theory or this thing called time does not belong to form or does not even belong to consciousness. It is the third category.
그 존재를 하나 놓고 보라 그러면 시간이라는 것은 모양도 아니고 그렇다고 해서
This thing called time is not it doesn't have a shape and it is also not part of consciousness.
시간이 지금 이렇게 변해가는 이 과정은 우리
The process of time changing
우리 형상하고는 또 다른
it belongs to a different category from our time, from our human existence. But this does not mean that the time is something that is outside our consciousness. Our body change and our consciousness change, it is also time. The concept of time is a concept that we talk about or the change of our body, of our forms, and also consciousness. So when you say a day, it means the earth is going around. So it's almost like let's make the concept of Earth one day as the Earth one round. So we can also say that our birth and our death, let's take it as one round or one life. The all knowledge means consciousness of having all knowledge. What is all knowledge or what is the Buddha's knowledge? This means all our consciousness is open. So you're able to know everything throughout throughout everywhere. When we say you have all knowledge or when you say we have Buddha's knowledge, it's same in all the sutras.
여러 경에서 전부 다 일체 종지를 이루었다는 것은 부처님께서 아까 얘기한 이 몸이나 또는
It's same even in Avatamsaka, even in Avatamsaka Sutra and also Diamond Sutra and also in also Sutras of Lotus, everything is same. It means you're able to know. So Buddha's knowledge means consciousness that knows all. Buddha's knowledge is not a property that can be found in a sand or in a rock or in a stone in a mountain. So Buddha's knowledge is not something that we can gain from normal day-to-day life. But these people who believe in natural philosophy, they might say that all these things, all these objects have life and life, but it's a lie. They do not have a consciousness. A stone cannot gain enlightenment.
나무가 깨달으냐고 나무가
Trees cannot gain enlightenment.
그러니까 일체 종지를 이루는 것은
So attaining Buddha's knowledge is a part of our consciousness.
동물이나 또는 그 지옥 중생이나 악의 중생이나 이쪽이 승부를 할 수가 없냐.
And also consciousness, the reason why animals or the evils in the hell they cannot get enlightenment is because the level of their knowledge is very less.
동물도
Even animals, they have very low sense of consciousness because all they could think of is their food and their shelters.
의식 속에서도 고도로 발달된
So they do not have a consciousness that's well developed.
고도로 발달된 의식.
It's only up to very natural status.
그래서 이제 일체적인 깨달음은
So the all knowledge or Buddha's wisdom cannot be developed from sand or stones or rock or in a mountain. That is caused by the object of your consciousness.
그것의 처음부터 발단되는 원인은 어디에 있냐면 의식으로.
That's why
그렇기 때문에 의식이 존재하는 사람 외에는
in the head of someone, or if there's no consciousness, there can be no enlightenment. It is all controlled by your consciousness.
그러니까
So animal and microorganisms,
동물이나 이런 것은
they cannot attain enlightenment.
윤회를 해서 사람으로
They can only attain status of enlightenment once they are reborn as a human,
의식으로서 깨달음에
or else they cannot develop the sense of bodhisattva within them.
개발할 수가 없어요.
Therefore, it cannot be caused without object of your consciousness.
그래서 이제
Of course, in the Buddha's knowledge,
일체지는 모든
or the Buddha's knowledge is the final status that encompasses everything or absolute.
이게 이제 깨달음이 일어나는 것은 대체적으로 내 의식과
So you hear the sense of enlightenment is based on your consciousness, and also that consciousness is also caused by those things which you can see with your eyes.
빛으로 빛이 있어야만
So unless until there's light, you cannot see.
색성형 미초법이 우리 안위설신의 대상으로서 있어야만이 가능한 거예요.
So it's only possible if the object is there for you to see and also feel. If there is no senses included here, then there can be no consciousness. And if there's no consciousness, then you cannot gain enlightenment.
이제 물론 일체지는 모든 완전함을 다 포함하는 것을 궁극적인 목표로
So the Buddha's knowledge is the final knowledge that encompasses all absolute everything. So the thing that we take as in or
모든 것을 갖다가 여기에서 일체 종지하는 것, 모든 것을 다 인지해서 알 수 있는 것을
it refers to those which you know everything. You are aware of every other consciousness.
라고 얘기할 수 있지만도
But you might ask, can a person do something like this? But even someone like Einstein,
얼마밖에 못 썼다 그러죠.
we say that he could only use 20% of his brain. Those neurologists, they say that he used only 20% of his brain.
우리가 그 상상을 할 우리 보통 사람으로서는
These unimaginable things for common people or normal people. He has developed so many things which we cannot even imagine, but we say he has only used only 20%. So, Buddha's head has a little like uplifted head, like his head has a little like a different shape, but even with your consciousness, you are able to know everything.
세 가지 범주 중에
So amongst these three conditions, the phenomenon that has been conditioned belongs to the category of your consciousness.
중요한 사실 그 그 자체가 인간이라 그럴 때는
So the most
인간은
important thing itself is
의식을 가질 수 있는 뇌 구조를 가졌다라는 것이 인간이 가장 다른 동물보다도
in comparison to other animals, the most important thing or the best thing that a human being has is our brain, which we are aware or which we have the consciousness. We are weaker than a tiger or a bear, but and we are also slower in race. But
다 약하지만도
although we are weaker in all these parts, but
이상적이라 그러면
our most advantage or the best thing that we have is the fact that we have a brain, and the most important thing about our brain is the fact that we are aware, or the fact that we have a consciousness.
모든 생명체들 가운데서
So that makes it different, or that makes it that makes us the best living thing.
인간만이 할 수 있는
And for that reason, we are the only ones which we can get enlightenment.
알고 이해하는 것이 의식의 기능입니다.
To know and to understand is the consciousness. It is the it's a property of a consciousness. For example, if we say we understand or we know, it means we know that by consciously we are aware of the senses, or that we have experienced it. Our eyes consciousness, or to say when you are looking at something, we say we are looking at it, or we say for the heart consciousness, or to say the sixth sense, we say when you are experiencing happiness or agony, we say we are happy or we are tired. So that's why I experience. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm listening. When you say these things, it means we know that conscious acts as a mechanism for our feelings. So this means to know something or to understand something is a mechanism of a consciousness. If you're not aware, then even if your parents comes beside you, or even if you're looking at them, you're not aware whether it's your parents.
자꾸 이제 그 까밀라 실라나 달라이라마께서 계속 깊이 그 주장을 하려고 지금 말씀을 하시는 것이 뭐냐면.
So here, what Kamala Shila and Dalai Lama tries to tell us in detail is the fact that our consciousness is the basis of our enlightenment, and how important that is. Our consciousness is very diverse depending on our knowledge, concentration, and also sharpness. But one thing for sure is the example that when you compare our human consciousness with that of an animal, then you know that we are able to understand in a more diverse and a more broader way. Our human brain can differentiate better. So say to study, or in order to study, you have to be precise, or you have to be sharp with your decisions, or so you have to find out what is the difference between the red bean paste and the soybean paste. Before 3 grandmothers died, it was on news in Yosu, and it was because they made a pancake with the DDT, or the pesticide, and they shared among themselves, and they died. They couldn't differentiate the difference between the flour and the pesticide powder. The smell? If you get old, you cannot smell well. Your nose does not work properly. And also, if you catch cold just like now, you're not able to identify. They just put some other vegetables, and they just put some sesame oil and some salt, and they were not able to make out what powder that was. They ate it and they died. So the Buddhist law, in Buddhist law, you need a sharper decision, or you need sharper view, or else you'll be entering into the side way. If you think you do not have a sharpness, then you should listen or you should be taught under a teacher without sharp precision.
뚜벅 당기를 가면서
Or else you'll be going your own way
나는 석천사에서 공부하고 있다고 해.
and you will say you are studying in Seokjeon Temple.
그래야 뭐 진옥선이 창피하게 내지 말라고.
And please don't embarrass me in that way.
예리한 판단도 필요하고 집중력도 필요하고.
You also need a sharp vision and you also need a concentration.
산만하게 살아가지고
Because we live in such a diverse world.
가면서 다 잊어버려.
Even if you listen now, on the way back to your home, you'll forget.
가서 저 며느리 흥자한테 한마디도 못 해주죠.
Once you get home, you're not able to tell anything to your daughter-in-law, right?
예? 예? 여기서 다 잊어버렸다고?
You tell her everything here?
아이고. 그래도 깨진 독에 자꾸 물 붓는 식으로 내가 힘 빠지게 하지 마. 그래도 기억하려고.
But please don't make me tired, just like my efforts to put water into a broken jar.
한 가지 분명한 예는
One thing for sure is the fact that
인간의 의식 다양한
if you compare our human consciousness with that of an animal, then our human consciousness understand much broader, in a much broader way, and even human consciousness is different depending on their educational level and also their experience.
동물들도
So it's for sure that we understand better than animals, and also
아주 낮은 그 동물들도 있고
animals. There are some animals with a very low level of knowledge,
진돗개를
and there are some with a different thing.
그거 보니까 진돗개가
Once there was a Jinok dog in a TV,
주인이 말이야 밭에 가가지고
and
소미를 안 갖고 왔다 그러니까
as the
소미를 물고 온다니까.
as the owner of the dog say, oh, he forgot to bring plow from the farm, and then he went to the farm and brought the plow.
그래서
I was so surprised.
그 미션을 하는데 이게 뭐
And so when he was doing the mission,
나,
they had a lot of like so many different the agricultural instruments, and when the owner asked him to bring the knife, he would bring the knife, and if the owner asked him to bring the plow, he would bring the plow.
보니까 저그 홈이 낚이는 거 모르는 사람 나 여기서 나이 식구들 가운데 가서 깔꾸리 좀 갖고 와라 그랬더니 깔꾸리가 뭔데요?
Here I asked someone to bring galkumi, and they asked, "What is galkumi?" And maybe that she's worse than the dog.
문제 많잖아.
A lot of problems.
아니 그게 훈련을 시킨 게 아니고
It's not like the owner trained him.
저 뭐야 그 주인이 밭에
One day,
가서
the owner went to the farm,
안 갖고 왔다는 거야.
and he realized that he didn't bring the plow,
그럼 물고 오더라는
and he just murmured, and then the dog went and he brought it.
그러니까 반복적으로 사람도 그렇지 뭐 이제.
Maybe you feel that it's a repeated activity, but it's the same with human.
거기서 깔고 했는데 맨날 봐도 눈만 뜨고 이렇게 봤지 여기 카메라 필름이 없었지. 예?
It's same with that person. She knew what is galkuri each time I said, but she didn't know what that was, or she did not have the consciousness.
아니 깔기라 그래도 못 알아듣고 깔꾸라 그래도 못 알아듣으니까 그렇지.
The problem is they didn't understand even if I spoke in a very standard language.
꿀조 시계를 못 알아듣는다 그러면 그건 내 이해해.
If you're not able to understand some slang languages of Cholanamdo, I understand. But
아 여수에 사는 꿀조 시계도 못 못하나. 옛날에는 소나무를 갖다 소나무 그
in olden times, pine tree,
이렇게 잘라가지고 여기에 쇠를 하나 요렇게 내.
would cut the branches this way, and they would put some steel in those two ways,
그래 요 손을 다 잡고서
and they would hold it,
가지고
and
딱 쪼아가지고 탁
using this they would open the oyster, and using the using what's below the stair below, they would just put it to other thing.
한다니까.
I understand if you do not know this, but if you do not know what is a broom, then it's a problem.
그 흙이야 뭐. 양식 없으면 뭐라, 쌀 없으면 라면 먹는다는 게 그냥 뭐라. 이게 그 진돗개가 한 50개 정도로 갖다 그걸 알아봅니다.
The dog was able to identify about 50 different items.
끊는 거 있잖아요. 벤치고 닛바도 구분한다니까.
He could even make a difference between a nipper and a bench, and I think it's even better than me.
그 이제 애기 아빠가 아 벤치 말고 닛바 좀 갖고 닛바가 뭐요? 닛바는 내 바는 모르겠어.
If your husband asks you to bring some of the tools, then you would not know what to bring.
그러니까 모를 거 아니야. 그러니까 걔는 그걸 구분을 다 하더라니까. 아 그럼 되게 영리해. 땀놈인데 그냥 하얀 그 진돗개인데 아주 영리해.
It was a white female. She was very intelligent.
옆에 뭐 하는 거 하여튼 뭐 이것저것 다 도와주고.
So she helped her owner, and she would follow her. She was doing a very good job.
아들보다 낫더라고.
It was better than her son.
손 낡은 날 아들은 뭐 맨날 집에서 돈이나 갖고 가지고 술퍼 먹으러 다니는 아들보다는 100배 낫더라고. 옆에서 다
It was way better than her son,
주인 옆에서 지켜주고 말이야.
protecting the owner.
그러니까 인간의 의식 수준도 이제 그 사람이 이제
So even our human consciousness is different as per his or her lifestyle, and also the educational level, and also how you use your knowledge.
다 산다.
It's all different.
더 많이 교육받고 더 많은 경험을 한 사람이
Those with more education and those with more experiences, they have a wider consciousness. The knowledge and understanding develops based on the consciousness of the ability based on your knowledge and also your understanding.
필요한 조건을 만나면 인식 능력
If you meet the required conditions, then your ability to identify increases, and your knowledge, the object of your knowledge expands, and your understanding gets deepened. In this way, you are able to fully develop the potential of your heart.
불법은 사실
Like this, Buddhism
인식할 수
is
있는 범위가 인식할 수 있는 이걸 갖다 자꾸 높이
the degree of your understanding. If you do not develop it furthermore,
정지해 줬느니 요따구 소리 나서
but if you just say one day, your kid was given by a god, and if you say it was from the marine god that he did this to you, or it's none of totemism, or it's not even shamanism.
대신으로 갔는데 아이고 용왕님이 보살펴가지고 어떻게 됐다느니 뭐 산에
And
가서 산신님이 보살펴가지고 어떻게 됐다니
if you say it was the mountain god or the marine god that helped you with this and this, if you are not able to identify it clearly, and if you do not have your own understanding, that means your level of your consciousness is very low. So if you keep saying this, then you should think that maybe you do not have a proper consciousness, or maybe you do not have a mind that's enough to be a human being.
그렇게 정도로 갖다 토템이나 샤만이나 또는 뭐 그냥 모든 것을 갖다 내 의식을 버리고 그냥 뭐 그 신의 의지에 버리거나 이러면
If you detach your own consciousness and if you just rely on the totemism or shamanism, then that leads to all these confusions. And also, like, while you are dependent on this kind of things, like to say, even the Arab, even the Muslim, if they only believe in one supreme God, or then it does not lead to a proper development of consciousness. There will only lead to more quarrel and more arguments. Sometimes I feel very sad while looking at these different kind of situations. So we have to try our best in order to develop this different consciousness. So you should listen to these teachings well, and not only listening to those teachings, but you know, stop watching TV and just have these kinds of excitements while watching the TV. The mother-in-law over there keeps traveling the kids. These kind of things is they are just tricks in order to earn money. So when you're watching TV, then you should look at documentary. Those are not fake stories, but they are really based on actual life, and that also helps you develop your knowledge. If there's a documentary on discovery of Mars, the moment your kid has it on, then you fall asleep. That is because your consciousness and the documentary cannot go together. Your consciousness is only concentrated on the sub-dramas. It should not be done so. Do you also do that? You don't watch? Soap operas are all fake. So those producers of these soap operas, they try their best in order to gain people's attention. And also, if you say you watch the you watch the TV because the actor is smart or handsome, the German television programs are a little boring. It's Korean television that has too many of those unnecessary things. In Germany, I heard that using only one camera, they had just one. They had just one like a fish tank, and over there, they just let it show. So those people who cannot go out to see fish or a fish tank, they keep watching it because it almost makes it look like they have a fish tank in their own house if they show that program. Maybe I thought I should also have one. Like showing showing a monk the whole day who is meditating. Just broadcast it the whole day. So when I'm eating, he's always I look at him and he's meditating. When I'm doing something else, he's meditating. It would be nice. Shall we stop here? No one tells us to do more.